I didn't see the bucket until it hit my collarbone. Cold, sour liquid burst down my neckline, sliding under the pearls my late husband gave me, flooding the silk like it had been waiting its whole life to drown it. The smell, rotting leftovers and dishwater, rose up in a wave so thick people actually stepped back from me. My daughter-in-law, Zara, didn't. She stood in front of me with that camera-ready smile, bridesmaids fanned behind her like a chorus line. Somewhere in the room, a DJ cut the music. Glasses paused in midair. I heard my son laugh, soft, embarrassed, then louder, because the men at his table were looking at him, waiting to see how he'd play it. "There," Zara whispered, shaking out the empty bucket as if it were confetti. "A little seasoning for the mother of the groom." Laughter rippled, too bright for the amber light of the ballroom. Chandeliers winked like 100 cruel eyes. I stared at my dress, cream silk, hand-stitched, my wedding anniversary gift to myself 2 decades ago, and watched it turn into a splotched canvas of humiliation. Brown streaks, shredded lettuce clinging like seaweed. A rubbery mushroom slid down my sleeve and plopped at my shoe. I didn't cry. I didn't look away. I did what I have always done when people believed I was too old or too polite to fight back. I counted my breath, then the exits, then the faces. My son, Ayan, jaw tight, eyes flicking between me and his fiancée. My brother-in-law, already raising his phone to film. Zara's mother, arms folded, amused. And the guests, oh, the guests, hungry for scandal like it was dessert. "Oops," Zara sang, tilting her head. "You should have seen your face." "Zara?" Ayan started, a warning tucked into her name. He still sounded like the boy who used to leave sticky fingerprints on the fridge and swear he hadn't touched the jam. "It's fine," I said, my voice steadier than my heartbeat. I peeled a strand of something from my wrist and set it on a napkin. "Accidents happen." "It wasn't an accident," she said cheerfully. "It's a joke. Content." She lifted her phone. "Mother-in-law reacts to wedding prank." A few guests chuckled, the kind of laugh that forgives what it fears. I felt the ballroom tilt, not from shock, but from the memory of a kitchen table years ago. A will, a signature. The lesson I learned in the quiet after grief: power doesn't arrive with applause. It arrives with paperwork, with patience, with the choice to endure long enough to tell the story yourself. Across the room, the band leader coughed into the mic and asked if we should resume the entrance music. Someone shouted, "Let the bride go viral." I took a step backwards, shoes suctioning off the sticky floor, and the smell hit me again. Garbage juice, old onions, decay. People wrinkle their noses at age like it's a scent. Tonight, they could have it both ways. Old and spoiled. That was the headline they wanted. I lifted my chin. "Zara," I said softly, "you've stained the dress, not my dignity." She smirked. "Sweetheart, your dignity is from the last century." Ayan's chair scraped. "Enough." "Relax," she told him, touching his arm like a leash. "Everyone's laughing. It's good vibes." I could almost hear the click inside me, the place where hurt turns into a hinge. I said to no one and everyone, a long time ago, I learned that rooms like this only remember 2 kinds of women, the spectacle and the storm. If you force me to be one, I'll be the other." Zara blinked, confused. "Is that poetry?" "It's a promise," I said. The caterer's staff hovered near the doors, uncertain whether to rush me with towels or wait for the entertainment to end. Zara's bridesmaids whispered. One of them, sweet-eyed, too young for this ugliness, didn't look at me at all. She stared at the floor, her cheeks burning on my behalf. The music in the hall was still off, but something hummed beneath it, the crowd's appetite. I could have walked out. I could have made a scene. But I didn't spend 30 years building a family from broken hearts to exit my son's wedding in defeat. I also didn't spend the last 6 months watching Zara's little games without collecting the pieces she kept dropping. Words spoken when she didn't know who was in the kitchen doorway. Messages screenshot by people who were tired of being used. Receipts, real ones, paid with my late husband's name. When my husband died, I inherited more than condolence flowers and casseroles. I inherited the part of the company he never talked about in front of guests, the unglamorous power, logistics, contracts, the boring skeleton that holds up the glamorous skin. I was invisible to people like Zara until she wanted something. Then, I was an obstacle dressed like a woman. Zara stepped closer, performative concern painted over delight. Do you need help cleaning up? I looked at her, really looked. The lashes, the expensive teeth, the hunger, not for love, but for a stage. She had chosen the wrong theater. No, I said gently. I'm exactly where I need to be. I took the linen napkin from the nearest table, dabbed the neckline, and patted my cheeks dry as if I were merely freshening powder. Women watched me do it, the older ones especially, and some of them straightened in their chairs, their hands on their purses, eyes moving like they'd seen this play before, and were praying for a different ending. A voice at my shoulder, a quiet, familiar voice, said, "Ready?" I didn't look back. Yes. It started so small, people thought it was an accident. A soft click from the back of the hall. Then a thrum as the mounted screens along the far wall woke up, their black panes glowing blue. Heads turned like flowers toward sun. The chandeliers flickered once, twice. The DJ's eyes darted to me. He had been told there might be a surprise presentation, the kind couples love to spring on their guests. He hadn't been told who was presenting it. Zara's laugh thinned. What's this? Content, I said. Ayan was on his feet now. Mom, what are you doing? Something I should have done the first time she called me an antique, I said. I am showing the difference between old and timeless. Zara tossed her bouquet to a bridesmaid, as if she needed both hands free to applaud herself. Oh, this is rich. Are we about to watch your wedding slideshow? Black and white photos and violins? No, I said, and when I smiled, women who'd been holding their breath let it out like a small wind. We're going to watch yours. The ballroom doors at the back burst open. Light from the corridor blew into the hall like a second sunrise, and 3 silhouettes stepped through. Security in black suits, and between them, a woman in a navy blazer. Silver hair pinned like a crown. The room recognized her before Zara did. Miriam Qureshi, family attorney. Miriam had been my husband's rock when I couldn't stand. She had been my lighthouse when the fog of grief turned our accounts into a language I didn't speak. People whispered her name the way you whisper a surgeon's. Zara went pale, the kind of pale that makes makeup look like a mask. Why is a lawyer here? Because weddings, Miriam said, voice even, often hide contracts inside their cake. Her heels clicked a measured tempo on the parquet as she walked toward us. The security men peeled off to the side, hands folded, unnecessary but expressive. The night would proceed without chaos. Ladies and gentlemen, Miriam said without taking the microphone. She never needed one. We need a moment. The screens behind her went from blue to a frozen frame. Zara's face shot from slightly above, speckled with nightclub glitter and the bright white of a bathroom ring light. She was not in a gown. She was in a robe, someone's voice behind the camera coaching her to say it like you mean it. Her mouth was mid-word, frozen on the shape of confession or cruelty. Only she knew which. The room tightened. Somewhere, cutlery chimed on porcelain. The DJ's hand hovered over the fader, waiting for permission to kill the silence. Ayan's breath was a storm trapped in his chest. My hands were steady. Zara thrust her chin forward. "This is illegal." "It's consensual," Miriam said. "By the person who recorded it, and by the platform you signed, and by the building you're standing in, you should read terms before you perform." "I didn't perform," Zara snapped. I posted." "Exactly." I felt 90 sets of eyes flick from the screens to my stained dress and back again. It hit them one by one that I was still standing in the stink and the ruin, and that I had not reached for the bathroom. People confuse endurance for weakness until endurance speaks. Miriam looked at the DJ and then at the doors. And then she said 3 words: level, untheatrical. But they cut the room like a bell. "Roll the footage." The air changed. Laughter died on lips. Zara's mother stood up, but the security men didn't need to move. The collective attention of the room held her down better than any hand could. The screen flickered. The first frame advanced by a breath. My son whispered, "Mom?" Without deciding who he was asking, me or the woman on the screen. I folded the ruined napkin and set it beside the mushroom at my shoe. I didn't feel sticky or spoiled anymore. I felt precise. "You want to know what we showed them, don't you? You want the truth, not the pretty version that gets told over coffee the next week. I'll give it to you, but not all at once, because disrespect eats fast. Justice eats slow and leaves no crumbs." The screen unpaused, and Zara's smile, my future daughter-in-law's internet smile, filled the ballroom like a bright false lamp. "Okay, besties," her recorded voice chimed, phone angled high in a powdery hotel bathroom. "Story time before the big day." She peeked over her shoulder as if checking a doorway. "If you're marrying for love, that's cute. I'm marrying for leverage." A gasp rippled, the kind that starts in the women who've seen this before and spreads to the men who haven't. Even the chandeliers seemed to lean in. Zara dabbed her lip with a fingertip and continued, cheerful as a cooking show. "Rule 1. Make the son think you need his heart. Rule 2. Make the mother think you need her approval. And Rule 3. Get the paperwork you actually need, access." She winked. "People like Ayan are raised on guilt. People like his mom are raised on control." The clip jumped. Another angle. The same robe. A different day. "He's so earnest," she laughed softly. "He said, 'Babe, I know Mom can be intense, but she's harmless.'" "Harmless?" She rolled her eyes into the lens. "Please, do I look like a girl who's afraid of lace and casseroles?" "We only fear what we don't understand. And I understand her. She's the vault." A whisper threaded the room. "The vault." My spine stayed straight. The video cut to text overlay. Her captions, bubbly and pink. How to disarm a matriarch. Then back to her face. "I let her win tiny things," she confided, conspiratorial. "Let her pick flowers. Let her think she's teaching me the family's philanthropic history. Meanwhile, I'm learning who signs what. I'm learning when. I'm learning passwords she says out loud because she thinks old equals loud." A man's voice off camera. "Z, are you sure about posting this?" "Relax," she said. "It's private, subscribers only." She smiled at herself. "And anyway, by the time anyone cares, I'll already be Mrs. Everything." Something in me smoldered but did not ignite. Fire is quick, coals are patient. I stared at the girl on the screen and saw what I had missed while I was busy forgiving. The cold arithmetic behind the mascara. Another jump cut, dim club light. Her friend filming, shaky with laughter. Zara held up a pen and a document, lips glossed, music thumping behind them. "Prenup addendum." she sang. So cute how he believes it protects him. Clause 12b. In the event of the mother's incapacitation, yada yada, temporary signatory authority transfers to the spouse. Translation? She kissed the pen. If Mama Bear trips, I get the honey. My son's chair scraped again. This time he didn't stand. He fell. The man who once climbed mango trees as if the sky were obvious came down without branches to soften him. Someone reached to help him. He shook free, eyes locked on the life he thought he was walking into. Miriam stepped forward just enough to redirect the room's shock into attention. Pause, she told the DJ. The screen froze on Zara's triumphant mouth. 2 facts, Miriam said, every consonant like a stitch in heavy cloth. 1. There is no clause 12b in any prenuptial agreement related to this marriage. She looked at Zara. Because there is no prenup at all. You refused to sign, remember? Zara's face went white, then red, then something between, like paint being mixed too quickly. That's a lie. Miriam lifted a folder, quiet paper, loud truth. You sent 3 separate drafts through your counsel insisting on joint immediate access to trusts that do not legally exist. She smiled, almost kindly. And 2, even if such a clause existed, it would be irrelevant, because the assets you were aiming at are locked in a testamentary trust executed 15 years ago with a clear successor trustee. Which is who? A man called, emboldened by the theater of it all. Miriam glanced at me. I did not move. She turned back to the room. You are looking at her. Head spun. Mine didn't. I'd already lived through worse collisions. Zara swallowed. You forged it, she blurted, reaching for accusations like life preservers. You and this dinosaur lawyer? Careful, Miriam said softly. Jurassic creatures have excellent bite. A ripple of laughter, brittle but real. The room had decided who it preferred. Maybe not me, not yet, but certainly not the girl who called them content. Resume? I said. The video lurched onward. A new clip. Zara in daylight, no makeup, hair tied in a careless knot that probably took 20 minutes to arrange. Her tone softened to a confessional whisper. Do I love him? She pouted thoughtfully. In a way, like you love a key that opens doors. Beside me, Aeon made a sound I have only heard from animals in traps. She went on. The mom? She's a relic. She's still mourning like it pays rent. Once the wedding's done, we'll upgrade the board, sell the stuff that's collecting dust, get liquid. The old man left a lot of dead furniture. She mimed, dusting a shelf. We'll make space for a new couch. A hand touched my elbow. I turned. It was not a security guard, not Miriam. It was an aunt from the bride's side, a woman I had never met, eyes wet, voice barely a string. I'm sorry, she said. We raised our girls to be clever, not cruel. Both are a choice, I told her. Today, she learns the cost. On screen, Zara lifted another paper to the lens. Timeline besties, she hummed. The camera focused. Transfer utility accounts. Change mailing address. Replace household staff. The mother loves her staff. They love her back. That won't work. We'll bring in our people. People who understand loyalty. She smiled, showing the kind of teeth you buy, not grow. I don't want to sound evil. She giggled. I'm just allergic to people who think their grief makes them owners. The screen blacked out. Silence landed like snow, soft on the ears, heavy on the soul. No thunder, no dramatics, just the pure, muffling weight of realization. Then the screen lit again, this time with a different image. My late husband at a picnic table, sunlight in his hair, a pen in his hand. The date in the corner, 12 years ago. His voice filled the hall. Warm, pragmatic. "If I go first," he said, looking off camera at me, "don't waste time polishing my trophies for the world. Use them. Sell some. Burn some." He laughed. "Not literally, Miriam." Off camera, Miriam's chuckle. "Give our boy rope to climb or hang himself, but the knot, keep that in your hands." He turned his face toward the camera fully, suddenly serious. "Whoever he marries, welcome her. Feed her. But if she mistakes your kindness for vacancy, show her the lease." The video stopped, not a dry eye in that room. Even the ones who hated me for being a mirror had to look away. Miriam closed the folder. "For the avoidance of doubt," she said, "the lease is active." Zara snapped. "You think you can embarrass me and keep your little kingdom? Watch me walk out and take your son." I finally turned fully to her. "You can take the aisle. You cannot take the family." Her chin trembled. "He loves me." "I believe he loved the woman he thought you were," I said. "That woman died on screen tonight." She threw her bouquet at the nearest bridesmaid like a grenade. "Fine," she hissed. "Enjoy your dusty money. We'll marry without your circus. Come on, Ayaan." She reached for my son's hand. He didn't move. His eyes were somewhere far away. The family kitchen at midnight, perhaps, where we used to peel oranges and try to name the stars through smog. He looked at me, then at Miriam, then at the floor, where garbage juice pooled around my shoes like a boundary. "Ayaan," she said, sharper. He stood, slow. When he finally spoke, his voice sounded like a man walking out of an echo chamber and into air. He swallowed. "I need 5 minutes." "You need me," she corrected. He shook his head once. "I need truth." He stepped away from her. Just 2 steps. It was enough to redraw a map. Zara laughed, brittle. "Oh, please. This is performative. You're all terrified of an ambitious woman." "No," I said, and felt a kind of peace uncurl in my chest, like a flag being freed. "We're terrified of people who mistake ambition for permission." I lifted my hand. A small wave. The caterers appeared as if conjured, not with towels, but with a rolling rack draped in protective plastic. Under it, a second dress, midnight blue, clean lines, sleeves like armor. The eldest server, Nusrat, who had fed my husband soup when I forgot how to eat, wheeled it in front of me, eyes bright with a pride that said, "Let's give them a new third act." "They'll never forget this," she whispered. "Good," I whispered back. "They were never meant to." We built a quick tent of linen screens. Women, some I knew, some I didn't, rose from their seats and formed a human wall the way birds form a V to lift each other. Hands unzipped, wiped, re-zipped. Someone dabbed my neck with lemon water. Someone else slipped my feet into clean heels. When I stepped out, the room took a collective breath. Not because I looked younger, because I looked undiminished. I faced the crowd, then the couple that never was. "2 choices," I said. "We can end the party here and refund every guest. Or we can finish this night with the truth on the table and dignity back in the room. The choice belongs to the groom." Every gaze swung to my son. He stepped forward, cheeks wet, jaw set. The boy who had once hidden behind my sari now stood beside me, shoulder to shoulder. He took the microphone, glanced at Zara, then at me, then at the screens where his father's frozen smile waited like a benediction. "I'm sorry," he said, to the guests, to me, to himself. "I didn't see what I didn't want to see." He turned to Zara. "You hurt my mother because you confused kindness with vacancy. You won't confuse me again." Zara opened her mouth, closed it, opened it. You can't cancel me, she whispered, like a child waking from a nightmare to find it followed her. I'm not canceling you, he said softly. I'm releasing you. From me. From this family. From the future you thought you'd rent. The hall didn't cheer. It didn't need to. Respect is quieter than applause. Zara backed away, hands shaking, anger and fear wrestling for her face. This isn't over, she spat. It is for tonight, Miriam said. And tomorrow at 10, we'll see you in my office to retrieve the devices and keys you collected under false pretenses. She looked at the security team. Please escort Ms. Khan to the lobby. No cuffs, just clarity. As Zara crossed the threshold, a gust of cooler air slipped into the hall. The kind of air you get after a long monsoon when the clogged drains finally clear. The doors swung shut behind her with a soft, final hush. I lifted the microphone. My hands didn't tremble. Ladies and gentlemen, I said, voice steady as a staircase, dinner is served. The band leader looked at me, then at the room, then struck a clean, forgiving chord. The music rose, tentative at first, like a bird testing its wings after a storm. Silverware clinked faintly as the servers moved in unison, trays balanced with precision, as if nothing scandalous had ruptured the night. But nothing was the same. You could feel it in the air. The raw, charged stillness, as though the entire room was afraid to breathe too loudly, afraid the fragile dignity I had reclaimed might shatter. I stood in the middle of it all, dressed dark and gleaming under the chandeliers, no longer the woman reeking of garbage, but the woman who had survived it, transformed it. I could almost feel the weight of eyes on me. Not pity now, not disgust, but something harder, sharper. Respect and fear. Ayan hadn't sat down yet. He hovered close, shoulders squared, eyes flicking toward the doors Zara had been led through minutes ago. The shadow of betrayal clung to him, but beneath it, I saw the outline of the boy I raised, the one who had once wept when he lost a school medal because he thought he'd let me down. Tonight, he wasn't a boy anymore. Tonight, the truth had cut him open and forced him to grow. Sit, Beta, I murmured, just for him. You're shaking. His voice was low, cracked. I don't know if I'm angry, ashamed, or relieved. Maybe all three, I said softly. It means you're still human. He nodded once, then took the chair beside mine. When his hand brushed mine on the table, it wasn't the hand of a groom. It was the hand of a son anchoring himself to the only constant left. The guests, one by one, began to eat. Hesitant conversations returned, whispered at first, then bolder, as though they needed to prove they could carry on. But every laugh carried an echo of what had been revealed. Every bite tasted faintly of scandal. People would go home tonight and tell the story differently, depending on which table they sat at. But one detail would remain in all their versions. I had stood, and Zara had fallen. Halfway through dinner, Miriam leaned toward me. You know the footage will leak, she said quietly. Even if we controlled it tonight, someone had their phone out. I want it to, I replied. Better they see the truth in pixels than in rumors. Her silver brows arched. You're not afraid? I've lived long enough, I said, lifting my glass, to know fear is wasted on the truth. Lies are what deserve it. Her eyes softened. You're stronger than you think. No, I said, setting the glass down. I'm exactly as strong as I've had to be. Across the hall, Zara's mother sat rigid, untouched plate before her, hands clenched around her clutch. Our eyes met. For a moment, I thought she might rise, storm across the floor, unleash whatever venom she had stored. Instead, she looked down, breaking the stare, and left the hall silently. It was the quietest admission of defeat I'd ever seen. Then, something unexpected happened. Guests began to approach me, not with apologies, not with hollow comfort, but with small, deliberate gestures. One woman, a cousin of Zara's, slipped a folded napkin into my hand. Inside was a scrawled note. I knew. I couldn't speak. I'm sorry. Another, a man from the groom's side, leaned close and whispered, "She mocked you because she was terrified of you. Tonight, she found out why." And one by one, strangers who had laughed at my humiliation just an hour ago now nodded at me like allies. Hypocritical maybe, but that is society. They turn with the tide. Tonight, I was the tide. But don't mistake this for triumph. Triumph is loud, gaudy. What I felt was quieter, heavier. It wasn't joy. It wasn't even satisfaction. It was justice, the kind that leaves you exhausted because you had to wield it yourself. When the dessert was cleared, Miriam rose again. She tapped her spoon lightly against her glass, and the chatter dimmed. "Ladies and gentlemen," she said, "we have all borne witness to an unfortunate but necessary unveiling tonight. But weddings are not only about contracts or families, they are about truth. And before we close this evening, there is one truth left to be spoken." She gestured to me. All eyes turned. The room hushed. I stood, my palms resting lightly on the tablecloth. Tonight, I was humiliated. My dignity was dragged through filth for entertainment. And yes, some of you laughed. I let my gaze sweep the room, not condemning, just acknowledging. But humiliation is not an ending. It is a doorway. What matters is what you choose to step into when you cross it. I paused. The chandeliers flickered faintly, catching on the crystal glasses. The silence was thick enough to touch. "Zara thought she was clever," I continued. "She thought love was a lock to be picked, that grief was a weakness to be exploited. She thought betrayal could be hidden in plain sight because no one would believe the mother was worth protecting." My voice sharpened. She was wrong, not because of me, but because truth has a way of walking through doors at the exact moment you think you've sealed them shut. I could see heads nodding, people shifting in their seats, some with shame, some with awe. I leaned forward slightly, lowering my voice so they had to lean into the weight of it. "If you take anything from tonight, let it be this. Never mistake silence for absence. Never mistake kindness for weakness. And never assume the older among us have nothing left but memories. Sometimes we hold the keys you don't even know exist." I sat. The hall didn't erupt in applause. It didn't need to. The silence that followed was louder than clapping. It was the silence of hearts absorbing something they'd carry home. The evening wound down. Guests left in clusters, murmuring, phones buzzing with messages they wouldn't dare say aloud in front of me. I stood by the exit, not as a victim of a prank, but as the gatekeeper of my family's name. Some avoided my eyes. Others bowed their heads politely, but no one dared laugh. At last, the hall was nearly empty. Just me, Ayan, Miriam, and a few staff tidying up. My son sank into a chair, face in his hands. "Mom," he whispered. "What do I do now?" I walked to him, placed a hand on his shoulder. "You grieve," I said. "Not for her, but for the dream you thought you had. Then you rebuild, stronger, smarter, with people who don't see you as a key, but as a person." His eyes brimmed, but he nodded. "I'm sorry I didn't see her for what she was." "You saw what you wanted to," I said gently. "We all do. Don't let shame blind you longer. You're free now. Use it." He looked up at me, eyes raw. "And you? Are you okay?" I smiled, not the smile of triumph, but of endurance. "I was okay before this. I'll be okay after, because I know something she never did." What? That I don't need anyone's permission to stand tall. The staff dimmed the chandeliers one by one. Shadows lengthened across the parquet. The night was over. But the story, it was only beginning. Because tomorrow, when the world woke to whispers of what had happened at the wedding, there would be endless speculation, endless gossip, endless versions. But the truth, the real truth, would always belong to me. And I intended to tell it. Because sometimes, survival isn't enough. Sometimes, you need to let the world know that you didn't just endure. You endured and won. Quietly, sharply, permanently. That night, as I left the hall, the cool air wrapped around me, clean and sharp, and I thought of the lesson I wanted the world to hear. When they pour garbage on you, don't fight the stink. Wait, because in time, the stench clings not to you, but to the hands that threw it. And with that, I walked into tomorrow. The next morning, the world already knew. I hadn't spoken a word to the press. I hadn't called a single journalist. But the story had legs, and it sprinted. By sunrise, clips from the reception had leaked onto every social media platform. Grainy, shaky, muffled, but the message was clear. A bride mocking her mother-in-law with garbage juice. A son standing frozen between love and blood. A lawyer stepping in with footage of secrets, lies, and greed. The hashtags spread like wildfire. Garbage bride. The vault. When Mom spoke, I should have felt ashamed at being broadcast this way, my humiliation, replayed for strangers to mock. But instead, I felt strangely still. People weren't laughing at me. Not anymore. They were dissecting her. Zara's smugness, her confessions, her hunger for money that wasn't hers. And while the internet devoured her image, I poured myself a cup of tea, sat by my window, and watched the city wake up. Birds on power lines, hawkers shouting prices, a world still turning despite last night's earthquake. That was the thing about scandal. It felt like the sky had split, but outside, dawn still came. By noon, Zara was trending for all the wrong reasons. Her sponsorships, yes, she had them, dropped her. The influencer brands that had once sent her packages now sent public statements of disassociation. Old posts resurfaced where she had mocked women who age without purpose. Screenshots, voice notes, rumors, all collected like vultures. She called Ayan that day, 24 missed calls in 2 hours. Then texts. It was taken out of context. We can fix this. Please, don't leave me in this storm. He didn't answer. He sat at the kitchen table, phone face down, staring at the steam rising from his tea until it faded. His silence wasn't weakness anymore. It was a decision. When he finally spoke, it wasn't to her. It was to me. Mom, can I move back in for a while? I looked at him, my grown son, my heart in human form, and I nodded. Home is never closed. The days that followed tested us both. Paparazzi lingered outside the gates, hungry for a statement. I gave them none. Ayan returned to work, quieter but steadier, throwing himself into projects with a discipline that surprised even his colleagues. And Zara? She spiraled. News outlets reported on her vanishing from public events, her sponsorships collapsing, her so-called friends leaking more of her private videos. In one, she sneered about how she could make the old woman trip over her own kindness. In another, she bragged that Ayan's loyalty was as easy to control as a thermostat. Each leak destroyed another piece of the life she had tried to build. Then came the lawsuit. Miriam filed it quietly. Breach of privacy, attempted fraud, unauthorized access to family assets. Zara tried to counter with claims of defamation, but she had no footing left. Every video she had once boasted about became evidence against her. Every mocking word became a nail in the coffin of her own making. I didn't enjoy it. Don't mistake me. Revenge tasted less like honey and more like metal. It left a tang in my mouth that no tea could wash away. But it was necessary. Because women like Zara don't just harm one family. They set fire to trust itself, making every daughter-in-law after them suspect. And that was one crime I refused to let go unpunished. One evening, weeks later, Ayan sat across from me at the dinner table. He had shaved the stubble that grief had grown, his eyes clearer, his hands steadier. He ate quietly, then set down his fork. "Mom," he said softly, "do you think I'm broken?" "No," I said. "I think you're reforged." He frowned. "What do you mean?" "When glass breaks, it shatters into pieces that never fit again," I explained. "But when metal is broken, it can be melted, reshaped, made stronger. You, my son, are not glass. You are steel." His eyes brimmed, but he didn't let the tears fall. Instead, he reached across the table and squeezed my hand. "I don't deserve you." I smiled. "You don't need to. You're mine. That's enough." The case ended 2 months later. Zara signed a settlement, forced to return everything she had taken, barred from approaching our family again. She disappeared into obscurity, the same way scandal always does once the public finds new prey. But I didn't disappear. Something unexpected happened. Women began writing to me. Letters, emails, messages slipped through the gates. Stories of their own humiliations. At weddings, in boardrooms, in families that didn't believe them. They called me brave. They called me inspiring. Some even called me their voice. I didn't feel like any of those things. I felt like a mother who had simply refused to bow. But maybe that refusal was enough. So I wrote back, to as many as I could. I told them what I told myself that night. Never mistake silence for absence. Never mistake kindness for weakness. Never assume age means irrelevance. It spread, not like Zara's hashtags, quick and cruel, but like roots, slow and deep. One night, Ayan and I visited my husband's grave. The evening was quiet, a cool breeze bending the grass. Ayan placed fresh lilies on the stone, and I traced the letters of his name. "I think she would have destroyed us," Ayan whispered. "She tried," I said. "But she forgot something." "What?" "That we're not built on money. We're built on love. And love doesn't break when garbage is thrown on it. It only breaks when we let betrayal rot us from the inside." He nodded, silent. The sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in bruised purples and golds. As we walked away, I felt lighter. Not because the pain was gone, it never fully goes, but because I had carried it long enough to turn it into something else. Wisdom. And so, when people ask me now about that night, about the humiliation, the garbage juice, the betrayal, I tell them this. Yes, I was mocked. Yes, I was humiliated, but humiliation is a seed. If you water it with patience, with truth, it grows into a tree of strength no one can chop down. That night, my roots sank deeper, and that is why I am still standing. Because in the end, Zara lost her place at the table. My son regained his sight. And I walked away, not broken, not bitter, but stronger, wiser, and louder than ever. When the world throws filth at you, don't waste your strength flinging it back. Stand tall. Let the stench cling to the hands that threw it, and wait. Because the truth, when it arrives, doesn't need an invitation. It only needs a door. And when that door opened at my son's wedding, the entire world finally saw who I truly was.